really delighted to be joined today by Daisy Ford Downs from Firstport. Daisy, those of you who know me will know I've worked around kind of presenting on social investment for some time, and I'm really looking forward to Daisy's presentation today because I think those of us who've worked in this field for a while know there's perhaps some gaps in terms of risk appetite, and I think to some degree this new product's trying to address that, and I think Daisy will talk to us a little bit more about that and really highlight kind of where this fund I think fits in terms of the social investment framework, what it's trying to do, and if you're interested, kind of any next steps in terms of making an inquiry. So I'm not going to steal any of your thunder, Daisy. I'm just going to hand straight over to you, and thank you for joining us. As ever, if people have got questions as you go through, do post them in the chat. There's going to be plenty time for questions at the end, and really look forward to it. Over to you, Daisy.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. It's good to be presenting this for Social Enterprise Scotland. As obviously, the Catalyst Fund is a partnership between Firstport and Social Enterprise Scotland, so it's quite a special thing and good to be able to talk to you all this morning. Now I'm just going to do the "Can you see my screen" dance. So everybody, if somebody could shout up to let me know.
Yep, so once it goes onto slide view, we'll all be good to go, but we can see it.
Okay, so welcome to this introduction to the Catalyst Fund, to give you a little bit more information about what it is, who is it for, how does it work, and how can you apply if you are interested. As Naomi said, there's a Q&A session at the end, so if you do have any questions, please do let me know. I'm happy to discuss those with you, and you can let me know if there are things that I miss out as we go along. So to kick off, what is the Catalyst Fund? It is a new social investment product that supports ambitious social enterprises to start and scale their business. It is a fund that is supported by the Scottish Government as a joint venture between Firstport and Social Enterprise Scotland, and it starts at £50,000 and uses a flexible revenue-based repayment model. Now I'm going to explain what that means in just a minute, because it is slightly different to the typical sort of social investment products that you might see on the market. So who is it for? It's for ambitious social enterprises in Scotland with a high social impact potential. So we are looking for those social enterprises that have a growth plan, they're really ambitious about what they want to do, but they need investment to get going or to get their growth plan started. So it might be that they're new, or it might be that they're more established, but they have an exciting plan that needs investment to get going, but will really increase their revenues and increase their ability to have a social or environmental impact. We are looking for registered organisations with an asset lock in place. So a lot of Firstport's services and grants are for individuals who are just starting. So individuals can apply for grants in order to set up an organisation. Because this is a repayable investment fund, we are looking for an organisation rather than an individual. And it is for social enterprises that have already considered other forms or providers of social investment, but haven't been able to access them or found that they're not suitable. So this is an important point, that this is very much a gap fund. It is designed to fill the gaps where they exist in the current social investment market. So we know that a lot of social investment takes the form of term loans, which is to say that you borrow money, you pay it back over a specific length of time that's provided for you, and you pay an interest rate for the length of time that you have that money, and there is a fixed repayment, so the payment is the same every month. Now, often that there are organizations or business models that just aren't suited to that type of repayment, either because they're just getting going and they haven't established their revenue streams yet, or their revenue might be unpredictable, so they're not able to service these fixed repayments as they go along. So if that type of social investment where you're paying a fixed amount over a certain length of time is appropriate for you, then that is what you should go for. But if not, if you've been to other social investment providers and found that it's not suitable for you, then you can come to Catalyst. and we'll look and see if this product that we are offering is more appropriate and can help you to build your enterprise. So we're going to follow a little story of a social enterprise going through the process so that you can start to build a picture in your mind of what this might look like. So our example hypothetical social enterprise is called Silver Surf, and it's an app that helps older people to connect with each other and play games online. So it's tackling that social isolation and cognitive decline. And the team have built a minimum viable product with no code tools. So they've just sort of hacked together something that shows what the product will look like. And they've tested it with their audience, so they know it's accessible for older people to use, it's easy. And they've built relationships with care homes and assisted living providers and have commitments to subscribe. So they have tested what their business is going to be. They've got interest from people who want to buy it, but now they need to hire a developer to build their app in full, the full product, and they need investment to do that. So this is a use case that we do quite often see. And obviously, Firstport sees a lot of social enterprises throughout the year through our support and grants. And we know that there are enterprises out there who are looking to use technology in their services and their support that they offer to beneficiaries and users, but they're unable to find the investment to provide that, to build a technology product. So Catalyst is designed to be a bit more appropriate for something like this that needs investment upfront in order to build revenue streams. So what does the repayment model look like for something like our example social enterprise there? Well, for a start, it does give you that time to build something, time to build up your business model, your revenue streams over 12 months. So you won't start repaying the investment until 12 months after the investment. And unlike that term loan that I spoke about, the monthly repayments on Catalyst are based on a percentage of the revenue you earn. So it should always be affordable for you. So if you have a good month, you earn lots of revenue, you'll pay more back. If you have a bad month, then you'll pay less. So it flexes as your revenue flexes. So that's why it's better, perhaps more appropriate for lumpy or unpredictable revenue, often in the early days. There's no interest rate, so we agree the amount that you'll pay up front, and that'll be expressed as a multiple of the amount that you invest, that you borrow. So we'll say it'll be perhaps 1.3 times your investment amount, or up to 1.5 times investment amount. That's the amount that flexes rather than the interest rate. In a typical term loan, the interest rate is what increases or decreases depending on the risk or the stage of your business. Here, it'll be the amount that you agree to repay. And there is no term limit. The repayments will continue until you have paid back that amount that you have agreed. So it is absolutely flexible. If your growth is really, really impressive and you suddenly find you're doing really, really well, then that percentage of repayment that we take each month will be comparatively more, and you'll pay back quicker. If your growth is slower, you'll pay back slower. So it always flexes to what is appropriate for you. So back to Silver Surf, our hypothetical enterprise. So they've figured out they need £100,000 to build this app. And they contact social investment providers about a loan, but because of their business model, they're not able to get a term loan because they're not going to have steady revenue streams until this product is built. So it's not going to be appropriate for them to have a bank loan or other sort of loan they might be able to get. So they apply to Catalyst, they go through the application and assessment process, and they're successful. They agree to pay 3% of their revenues until they've paid 1.5 times the investment amount, which is 150,000. So to put that in context, that is about the same as if they were able to get a term loan and they got a 10-year loan paying 8% interest, they would overall pay about the same as that fixed amount that they've agreed with Catalyst. But the repayments that will change. So instead of paying the same every month, they'll pay more in good months and less in low months. And then as they grow, first year revenues are quite uneven. They build their product, they start testing it out and getting subscribers, but it's a little bit uneven. But by the time they start paying their first repayments, they're making around £10,000 a month in revenue, and they pay, therefore 3% is £300. The revenues build to about £100,000 a month. They're doing really well at the end of the second year, and then of course their 3% is £3,000 a month. By the end of the year, the third year, the growth has slowed a bit. They're making nearly £200,000 a month, and they've repaid nearly £70,000. Now, so obviously this is a very high growth business, kind of technology business that can aim at this kind of growth plan. But this is how it would look for something that was that high growth to be able to repay. And if they are doing this well, then they're able to repay the full amounts by the 5th year after investment. And typically we would be looking for enterprises to be able to repay within 10 years. So it is still similar to that 10-year term loan, but the repayments are flexing depending on how they're doing. So if you think that a Catalyst might be appropriate for you, the first thing to do is to attend an information webinar. With the dates are on our website, so you can see when those are, and that'll give you this type of information, but also allow you to speak with one of our members of staff to ask your questions specific to your business about whether it's appropriate. If you're still interested and you fit the criteria, then you complete an expression of interest. This will put you in touch with our investment and growth manager, who will have a discussion with you about your suitability for the fund and how the whole process works. If you're eligible and suitable, then you'll be invited to complete a full application. So the expression of interest form is very light. It's really just taking the basic details. You don't have to do the really hard full-on work until you get to the application form, which will ask you in depth about your business and your growth plans and the social or environmental impact that you'll be having. And it'll ask you to really think about what are the strengths of your business. Why do you believe that you'll be able to grow? What is the evidence behind your growth plan? And what are the risks that you might face? How are you mitigating those risks? And what help might you need? And what are your plans beyond? Will you need further investment after this? These are the sorts of questions that we'll ask. So once you've completed an application, you'll be invited for an assessment meeting, which you'll probably be with myself, and we'll discuss further. And then I will take it to our investment committee, who will make a decision within 8 weeks of your application. And then if you're successful at that stage, we'll agree those repayment terms and a plan with you and discuss the legal agreement. So hopefully that is a good overview. I'm very, very happy to take questions now and to fill in any gaps. I will also stop sharing, but I will just put this one up here to say, please do go and visit the website if you'd like to find out more. We've got guidance documents up there and more information. And of course, you can find us on socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, if you'd like to be in touch.
Thank you very much, Daisy. Obviously, if people have got questions following the presentation, please do post them in the chat, and we'll try and put those through. I can see something's come forward, and I'll do a little bit of reading of that, but while I'm reading that, I might put a different question to Daisy, so I've got the chance to take that in as well. I just want to pick up a few bits. Obviously, people will ask lots of questions, I think, ordinarily about things like the application process. So you talk quite a lot in terms of obviously understanding the strengths, understanding risk. Could you say a little bit in terms of financial forecasting, because obviously it is still a repayment scheme. So what would you anticipate people would have in terms of kind of cash flow, finance forecasting, and would they have to have evidence of kind of the fact that they've already had income in terms of earned income coming into their organisation?
So we will provide a template which asks for 3 years of detailed projections into the future. The first year of that will obviously be before the repayments kick in. And then the second and third year will show you what the estimated repayments would be based on your projections that you write in, and we'll also ask you about your assumptions, so what is behind the numbers that you put in. And obviously at an early stage, we know that projections are rarely very accurate. What we're really, really interested in understanding is what makes those numbers go up and what makes them go down. It's about the drivers of your business model and the evidence behind that. So you don't have to already have income, but what you need is evidence that you'll be able to have income. So we'll be looking for things like, if you are pre-revenue, trials, pilots, minimum viable product, letters of intent from customers, expressions of interest, building relationships with customers, particularly if they're enterprise or public sector level. So we need to understand why you believe that, customers will come and buy from you. That's the main thing.
Thank you, Daisy. That's helpful. A question's come in, and I've had a chance to read the slightly longer one, so I'll come back to that. But just a few of the quick questions that have just come in at the end. Someone's asking just about legal setup, and actually it was a question I noted as we came down, because I think you talked about organisations needing the asset lock, and obviously sometimes in our sector, obviously people talk about the asset lock and they don't see kick buy shares in that asset lock environment, because it has a cap, I guess. So there's still a potential for its part asset lock, but not a full asset lock. Are kick buy shares still eligible? And could you just say a little bit about the legal structures that can come in terms of applying to this fund?
So we are looking for a full asset lock. There cannot be any distribution to private individuals. So you can pay salaries to directors if that's appropriate, but we'll be looking for the governance that says, you can't just pay yourself the whole investment and hie off to Mexico. There has to be a level of governance in place with this type of organization. So it's possible to have a kick buy shares that pays out to another organization, but it cannot pay out to individuals. So there can't be that private profit distribution. So I hope that answers the question.
No, thank you, Daisy. That's helpful, because I know it often comes in terms of a very particular question.
It's about the source of funds. This is specifically social enterprise, and in Scotland, that is typically what we mean by social enterprise.
Thank you. So I guess for those who are less familiar with kind of the whole range of social enterprise legal structures, because I'm never sure when people come, I mean, generally people would be companies limited by guarantee, possibly with or without charitable status. There could be SCIOs, there could be a community interest company, which is the KIC acronym we use. There could be community benefit societies.
They could be community benefit societies, they could be co-ops. All of these types of organizations are able to have an asset lock. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of being structure agnostic. I'm interested in the impact that people are making, but for this particular fund, we are looking for that full asset lock. Hopefully one day we'll have greater funds that can service all sorts of organizations.
Thank you, Daisy. Hopefully that's clear. So if you're a private limited company, it's not a fund for you. But if you need any help on social enterprise legal structures, I would always say Firstport do run training sessions on that through the Just Enterprise program as well. So there's lots of support and advice out there. So hopefully that's helpful on the legal setup.
I would also just drop in, if you're at the point where you're thinking about how do I structure this, it's not an easy question. Absolutely. And part of what we're trying to do here is to make it easier to choose social enterprise, because when the social investment options out there are limited, then that means there are people out there who are thinking about maybe starting a social enterprise, but can't because they wouldn't be able to get the investment that they need. So hopefully, as we have increasing numbers of different sorts of products and social investment and different opportunities for people to be able to grow, it can make it easier to decide what it is that you need from a legal structure.
Thank you, Daisy. Perhaps the other quick question before I come to the question, I guess, around social impact, is a question just in terms of, I guess it's about liability ultimately, in terms of what happens. Obviously, this is funding people at a slightly riskier stage, potentially, if they're at an earlier stage. What does happen in terms of if the company doesn't get through that kind of startup stage, but it's gone down the catalyst fund? So if the company had been dissolved before repayments complete, what are the implications there for people?
We don't take personal guarantees or anything, so we're not going to come and take your house. We will be embracing some slightly more risky enterprises than a lot of the products out there. But ultimately, we're banking on having this very affordable, no fixed term product as being making it increasingly more likely that enterprises will be able to repay, because we're not going to knock you over. The repayments hopefully will not be so onerous that it will make it difficult to repay. So we are embracing risk, but you do need to be aware that this is repayable finance. It is a binding legal agreement that you do need to repay it. But if things go wrong, we won't be taking personal guarantee.
Thank you, Daisy. And I'm going to come back. I mean, I'm hoping maybe you've had a quick chance in the chat to see the question just around social impact that's come back a little bit. So it's coming in very much from kind of quite a new established community interest company, quite innovative in their field, but they don't necessarily at the moment have perhaps what's seen as a kind of high social impact in terms of on particular individuals, but the multiplication of social impact within their community could be higher. Could you say a little bit about how you're looking at social impact as kind of within the fund and what you're looking to support?
So within Firstport, we do look for direct social impact. So you do need to be working with individuals or communities or a particular environment, and can't be contributing to other organizations, for instance, to have that impact. However, we're not specifying what that impact needs to look like or how you need to measure it. That's what you need to tell us. So it's entirely possible for you to be having a social impact across a wide number of people rather than working specifically with a few fewer people. But we would talk to you on a case-by-case basis in those terms.
No, thank you. And I guess that's always going to be the case. Every business in the social enterprise sector is always slightly different. We have new ideas coming up all the time, and I think it's about having that conversation with individuals sometimes and organisations rather than individuals. I'm thinking back to your point about you need to be an organisation to apply, but really understanding what the organisation's trying to do, and it's not a one size fits all in our sector often, is it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is doing so many different things, and how do you compare these people building a house with these people educating children? It's apples and oranges, and it's all amazing work, but we can't really compare them against each other. So it's absolutely down to you how you have an impact and how you report it. But we will be looking for you to have a plan in place to be able to measure and report what that impact is.
Thank you, Daisy. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions that hopefully help people frame this in the right way. Obviously, when people look at more traditional social investment schemes, the term that they're often quite familiar with is issues around being investment ready. What does investment readiness look like for this fund?
So there are a few things that I'm looking for particularly. One is that growth plan and the evidence behind it. How carefully have you thought about this? And also, how honest are you about the risks? Have you really thought about what could go wrong and how you could mitigate it? If you come and tell me that there are no risks in this business, I won't believe you. That's not how it works. You need to think really carefully about this. And the next thing is sound financial management. You absolutely need to be across your numbers. You need to be managing your cash flow, understanding when the money comes in and goes out, and when you might have potential cash flow issues, because it goes up and down. And that's absolutely natural, particularly to early stage businesses. But you need to really understand that and to be forecasting ahead so you know you're not going to get into trouble. And well, I think those are the main things. It's just about thinking really, really carefully and being, really inside your business. If there are things that you're uncomfortable with, like financial management or cash flow management, challenge yourself to look at it every day, every week, and to write down your questions when they come to it, and then ask your accountant, go to a cash flow management workshop and ask the instructor. Don't be shy. There are no stupid questions. It is a difficult subject, but you do need to become really comfortable with it before you take on repayable finance. And the next thing I would say is about governance. In this sector, you do need to have a certain level of responsibility to your beneficiaries, to your community. So be aware of who's on your board. What does your staff team look like? Is there a good balance there? Have you got skill gaps? Are there skills that you need? It's absolutely natural that you would have skill gaps, but again, be aware of them and tell us what they are and how you plan to mitigate it. If you need investment to hire people in, that's absolutely, an obvious thing that can really help you grow.
Thank you, Daisy. That's helpful. I think there's a few kind of questions that have come in that I guess are specific, but they might be useful to other people on the webinar. So someone's asking if they want to test out various business models but need technology to do that. Does this fund enable people to do that kind of testing stage?
It's a bit of a tricky one. I mean, would you be looking for you to have done a certain amount of testing to be able to have the evidence? It's difficult for us to invest in those experiments up front. So I would really recommend that if you're experimenting with technology, go out there and use the no or low code tools that are available. A minimum viable product doesn't actually have to look like the product that you eventually end up with. It just has to test your assumptions. So perhaps if your assumption is about who is interested in this product, just put a landing page out there and see how many people are interested. Can you get people to sign up for a prototype or something like that? So you need to have some kind of evidence behind believing that people will buy this in order to access this fund.
Thank you, Daisy. And then I've got another one that's come in. It's a kick that's based in Scotland, but they're operating in a more global tech-based environment. So their beneficiaries and the community that they serve isn't necessarily always in Scotland. How does that fit in terms of this fund? Does the company need to be based here? Is that enough, or does the impact also have to be here?
We would be looking for an impact in Scotland. That's not to say you couldn't have a wider impact as well. But I think that's probably one of the ones that we would need to discuss it and see kind of what the balance is and understand, the overall impact of this company in Scotland. Is it going to have an economic impact and a social impact and all of these different things? So it's possible we would need to discuss that.
So I guess encouraging people to get in touch with you if they've got those particular questions would be the way forward. Please post if you've got, I've gone through lots of the particular questions that have kind of come through in the chat. So if you've got any burning questions that you're still wanting to ask, please do post them in the chat. I just wanted to ask a quick question. Obviously, as you were talking about, cost of finance is always important to people. So I got a quick question just around that. And you talked about kind of a 1.3 multiplier and a 1.5. How are you assessing that in terms of how is that getting determined, and how would people have an understanding of what the cost of finance could be to them?
So that multiple will be determined directly by the financial risk. So your ability to repay and how many and the risks that you have to your repayment model. So much like you would get a higher interest rate if you presented a riskier model, you would get a higher multiple. But the range of indicative multiples that we have are within that same range as the interest rates that you might be offered. So where we've agreed, which is sort of between just below 1.3 and up to 1.5, it would be very much based on the financial risk to the stage of your business. How much of that evidence do you have that people will buy, and what are the risks that might happen to provide an unfavorable outcome. So it really is, it's quite simple, and it's based on the same kind of metric as an interest rate.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps a last question. Well, there's two last quick ones that kind of sprang to mind as you were speaking. One is there anything in terms of, obviously, if people go down that kind of high growth rate, is there any advantage in terms of, is there an early repayment, or is it very much a fixed amount? That I think you talked about having that agreed finance package at the start. So is there ever any flex in that if people actually manage to pay it off even quicker, or is that absolutely set in terms of ongoing flexibility?
And given that you'll pay more if you earn more anyway, it's highly likely that if you're doing really, really well, you'll be paying it off quite early anyway. It's we have discussed the possibility that those that need further investment and would want to approach other social investors once they'd reached a stage of profitability or sustainability would be able to access other social investors who would want, then potentially we could exit, we could bow out, and they could take forward a new growth plan. So it's possible in that scenario that we would look at early repayment. But as I said, it's kind of built in that you would repay early as it is if you're doing really well.
Okay, thank you, Daisy. And then perhaps just the last one that kind of sprang to my mind as you were speaking was, obviously we've talked a lot about kind of tech and high growth. I think fits that kind of tech model. Well, I guess high risk also potentially comes in there as well. For those who don't have a high growth model, is this fund still suitable, and how would that just mean that obviously they'd be paying back the finance for longer, would be my assumption?
Yeah, so we are looking for a certain level of ambition, but it's absolutely not just for tech companies. We'll be looking for you to repay within 10 years. That's kind of our target range. So you would need to look at how much you're going to build your revenues and what is the sort of proportion of the investment you need to how high you can build those revenues. So if you only need a smaller amount and your revenue model is slightly less ambitious, that could be absolutely fine. Probably the most important thing to look at is margins in that case. How much of the money that you're bringing in is landing in your bank account at the end of the day, landing on the bottom line and enabling you to repay repayable investment if you're not looking at quite such a high growth model.
Thank you, Daisy. I'm trying to think what are the questions that people out there are desperate to ask, but they're a bit nervous. So if you're desperate to ask a question, you're a bit nervous, please don't be. Even if you want to send it directly to me and I'll ask it so no one knows where it's come from, that's fine too. If there aren't any kind of last questions, I was going to just ask you to kind of reiterate, if people are interested in this, how do they find out about the workshops, and how, obviously you shared your contact details, and we will share your slides if that's okay with everyone that's registered, so they'll have your contact details on that last
Yeah.
slide. But if they want to find out about the workshops.
Yeah, so the workshops, you just go to Firstport's website. So that's just firstport.org.uk. Sorry, I have to go and look at it because I still don't remember whether it's got a UK on the end. And that has all the information there. The other thing to say is that if you go to one of our webinars or submit an expression of interest, the person that you'll be talking to is my colleague Colin, who, and his main job is to make sure that everybody ends up in the right place. So if you're not quite sure that Catalyst is for you, or you're not sure if you're at the right stage, he has a view over everything that Firstport offers and across the whole ecosystem. So, he can say, if you haven't received grants from Firstport that you might be eligible for, he might suggest that you go for that, or any number of other grants or support programs that are out there. So he'll make sure that you end up in the right place and you are absolutely ready if Catalyst is what's right for you.
No, I think that's helpful. I think I say at a lot of these kind of support and information sessions that there is a strong ecosystem, and I think we all try to signpost as much as we can. So again, whether that's between social investors or, like you say, between yourself and grant elements that can be done, or business support where that's relevant, there's lots of those connections there. So it's always better to phone up, and I'd always reiterate the point you made. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There's not a judgment that's made. There's it's very much a sector that's here to help you. If you're interested in setting up a business for social impact, get in touch, because I think if you contact the wrong organization, we all know what each other do, and we would do that signposting. So
absolutely, and everybody in the sector gets that it's really hard to start a business and a really brave thing to do. So yeah, everybody's really, really willing to help.
That's really helpful. I'm just waiting in case there's any kind of last questions that are coming through. Everyone's quiet today. It must be the sunshine. Everyone's desperate to get off and get out there in the sun for a lunchtime walk. I don't think there's any more questions. No more questions coming through. So
yeah, I mean, it might be that people have bespoke questions that they just wanted to talk through their specific situation. So if that's the case, absolutely fine. Come to the website, come and talk to us, and we'll make sure you get to the right place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Daisy. I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting seeing how this comes forward, and I'd like to think we'll have you back in the future, perhaps once some of the investments that you make become public.
Yeah,
Is that, this is
absolutely.
still a very new fund, so I'd like to think if we get you back in the future, we'll be able to talk about some very real examples, and I think that will help people as we move forwards as well. So hopefully
Absolutely. I
we'll
think
get you
it's going to
back.
be really exciting. And I'm very excited myself to talk about the kind of investments that we're going to be making and what we learn as we go along.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much and have a great day. And thank you to everyone for joining us. Um, I'm just going to finish with my last plug. We're obviously here every Wednesday, but if you have missed any of our recent emails about our Corporate Challenge Boot Camp that's coming up with a real focus on supply chain and procurement, do sign up. We've got loads of great speakers. We've just added 2 new speakers to those sessions. So they're on every day between the 19th and the 23rd of July. And we'd be delighted if you join us for those. And we're here every Wednesday. So thank you for joining us today, Daisy, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for having me. And thanks everyone for your questions.
Great. Thank you. Bye bye.